Welcome to the launch of the 2024-2025 ROCA Report. My name is Katie Mitchell. I'm a policy analyst with the Global Ocean Forum, lead organizer of the report. And this event today is brought to you through the COP30 Virtual Ocean Pavilion. The Virtual Ocean Pavilion is co-organized by the Global Ocean Forum, along with Plymouth Marine Laboratory and Ocean Generation. This year is the 5th iteration of the Virtual Ocean Pavilion, and this free platform works to try and elevate the profile of the ocean within climate negotiations and its importance to all life on Earth, and also to make the UN Climate Conference more accessible for those who are not able to go and attend the conference in person. This year, the conference is being held in Belém, Brazil, and we're very excited that we're able to bring together collaborators and stakeholders from all over the world to access the activity at COP virtually through the Virtual Ocean Pavilion. So thank you all for joining today's session. If you are an attendee and you'd like to submit questions during the session, please direct them to the question and answer box that is found at the bottom of your screen for our panelists to review and respond to. We also will have live translation offered for today's event. I'll be enabling that now. If you'd like to utilize our live translation services, which are provided through Wordly, you can accept the invitation and choose a translation language relevant to your needs. So with that, it's my pleasure to give the floor to Dr. Miriam Balgos, the Executive Director of the Global Ocean Forum. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. It is my pleasure to welcome you all, panelists and attendees, to the launch of the 2024-2025 report on assessing progress on ocean and climate action. This report, a collaborative effort by 68 authors from 44 organizations, is a vital resource for negotiators and stakeholders at UNFCCC COP30. It comprehensively assesses progress on the ocean and climate agenda across global policy platforms, processes, and regional national initiatives. The report identifies critical policy and information gaps and provides actionable recommendations for future action at this crucial time for the ocean climate nexus. This report showcases the successful continuing cross-sectoral initiatives envisioned by the Global Ocean Forum founding partners. These efforts are designed to promote sound ocean governance, healthy marine ecosystems, and sustainable development. Maintaining our global network of partners is a cornerstone of this work. Issued biennially by the Global Ocean Forum and its partners, this publication continues the legacy of the original Roadmap to Oceans and Climate Action, ROCA for short, initiative. The Global Ocean Forum, the organizer of this report, would like to thank the co-authors, a number of whom are participating in this event, and other individuals who contributed significantly to this publication, especially the lead author, Dr. Peter Ricketts, and the other members of the editorial team and production staff, Katie Mitchell, Alexis Maxwell, Kevin McLaughlin, and Erin Bell. Now to a brief overview of this event. This event aims to share the findings of the report, especially the priority recommendations highlighted in the executive summary, through two panel discussions, with the first one focusing on scaling up science-based solutions for an equitable ocean future, and the second on strategies for regional implementation of identified ROCA priorities. We would like everyone to read and learn from the report, but most of all, to remember the key information it provides, as well as its recommendations to inform decision-making and encourage action, all of which are available in the report's executive summary and will be highlighted by our panelists. Without further ado, I would like to turn it over to Dr. Peter Ricketts, who will be moderating the first panel discussion. Peter, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Miriam. Welcome to everybody. I'd like to add my own personal welcome to you all, and thank everyone who's been involved in the writing and production of the 2024-25 ROCA report. It's a great pleasure for me to be moderating this first panel discussion as we look at the results and the outcomes of the ROCA report and what it is telling us about the state of global oceans as the impacts of climate change continue to become more severe and intense, more global, and also, of course, cumulative over time. So I'm very, very pleased to be moderating this panel today, which will focus, as Miriam said, on the science aspects. So this panel discussion is entitled Scaling Science-Based Solutions for an Equitable Ocean Future. And I'm delighted to welcome my esteemed panelists here who will each make a short comment on their perspective on this particular topic in terms of the outcomes and results of the ROCA report. And then at the end of the panelists' presentations, we'll have the floor open for some questions and answers from the participants. And as has been said, you can enter your any questions you have in the Q&A section of the meeting. So without further ado, let me very briefly introduce the panelists, and you have a more detailed bio in the event description that's available. So first is Karina Higa, who is a consultant on marine ethnobiology with Amphithea Blue Limited consulting company. We will then hear from Marketa Zakova, who's the associate consultant on marine and coastal biodiversity and ocean governance with Seascape Consultants Limited. Marketa will be followed by Torsten Thiele, who is the founder of the Global Ocean Trust. And then wrapping up our panelists is Whitney Berry, who is the Associate Director of Climate Policy for Ocean Conservancy. So thank you, panelists, and welcome to you. Very much appreciate you being willing to take part in this session. And I'm going to give you each, as you know, about five minutes to make your comments. And so I'm going to first ask Karina to start off with her comments. Karina, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Peter, for the introduction. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, perfect. So my name is Karina Higa. I'm an ethnobiologist from Brazil. I'm a founder of the Amphithea Blue, which is a consultancy company that concerns complex science and policy into accessible, relatable knowledge. I support institutions and communities through capacity building, creative community engagement and outreach, and co-design project development. So I want to thank you, Global Ocean Forum, for the invitation and for the chance to represent all the authors here. And with the COP30 taking place in Brazil, my country, it reminds me of the time I used to work with the grassroots organizations in Brazil, especially at the Rio +20 in 2012, standing with indigenous leaders at the Cúpula dos Povos to defend rivers against environmental injustice. So experiences like that show me that policy isn't abstract. It's lived, negotiated, and defended by people on the ground. And yet, too often, those voices are not at the negotiation table. So changing this is crucial for a fair and equitable ocean climate future. So for the report, for the ROCA report, my contribution was around capacity development, especially for youth and civil society. So capacity building is not just about teaching technical skills. It's about helping people overcome systemic barriers, engage meaningfully, and stay involved over time. To tackle climate change requires an integrated approach because oceans, land, and communities are all connected. So solutions work best when citizens and young people can co-create strategies that make sense in their context. Some examples from the report are the Blue Schools in Europe, where students turn what they learn about ocean and climate into real actions. Another example is the Youth Climate Councils, for example, in cities like Auckland and Seattle, where young people help shape climate budgets and policies. And about also, we mentioned the scenario building workshops, where communities imagine future challenges and test solutions to get about climate change. So we also highlighted the capacity building goes beyond knowledge. People need skills in communication, collaboration, and systemic thinking. So the ability to engage across differences, using science-based evidence responsibly, and counter misinformation. So tools like youth councils and citizen assemblies are key to scaling these solutions effectively. So all of these insights direct support to the COP30 priorities regarding to strengthening multilateralism, because inclusive capacity building and participatory structures bring more voices to the climate process. So decision-making better reflects those most affected by ocean climate change. Also is aligned with the connecting climate to people's daily lives. Programs like Blue Schools and youth-led initiatives make climate action real and relatable, showing how global agreements link to the local decisions and behaviors. And also, these insights collaborate in accelerating implementation, because when people understand the science, can communicate, can have a dialogue and mutual understanding, and have the skills to co-design solutions, implementation accelerates. So, and it's even more effective when solutions match local needs and communities feel ownership. So these reduce conflict, encourage innovation, and help scale local solutions with real impact. So just to wrap my speech, so as Indigenous people remind us during the COP30, they say the solution is us. So citizens need access to science-based knowledge to understand that, practical skills and participatory spaces to contribute effectively to local solutions, consequently increasing the impact of climate ocean action. So thank you very much for your attention and for this space.
Well, thank you very much, Karina, for those comments, which are so important and obviously very pertinent to the this particular COP in terms of not only this moment in time where we are with climate change and oceans, but also particularly the location of the COP and the issues that I think that you and your country are bringing to the table very forcefully and very importantly. So thank you very much. So now I'll hand it over to Marketa for your comments.
Yes, thank you so much, Peter. And hello, everyone, to everyone who's watching online. So it has been a great pleasure for me to contribute to this report for the first time. And I'm also very happy to participate in this event. So thank you to Global Ocean Forum for the invitation. And so for this report in particular, I had the opportunity to contribute mainly with respect to the ocean climate and biodiversity linkages. And I focused on some of the key developments and progress under the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, or the KMGBF. And I also covered some of the key climate-related outcomes from the CBD COP16, which was held last year. And a second part of my contribution was related to how we can strengthen synergies between the biodiversity and climate conventions going forward. And across all of these points, my main goal was to really emphasize the core message that the ocean lies at the center of both the biodiversity and climate crises, and that we can only tackle them effectively, really, if we if we work on integrated and cross-sectoral approaches across the CBD and UNFCCC and beyond that across other global frameworks, trickling down to the regional and national and subnational levels. And only then really we can achieve the lasting results that we desperately need at this point in time. And I also try to showcase how the ocean climate and biodiversity nexus has advanced under the CBD in recent years, showcase some key opportunities emerging from recent COP decisions and what's coming up in the near future on this, and how these can be further leveraged to strengthen synergies and develop more coherent science-based national policies that maximize co-benefits and reduce duplication of efforts across marine biodiversity and climate action. And so the importance of this growing recognition of the interconnectivity between climate, biodiversity, and the ocean is really what's important, and what's speaking to all of these COP30, the main COP30 priorities in one way or another. So with respect to strengthening multilateralism, well, the CBD COP16 decision, a major decision on biodiversity and climate change, is calling for integrated approaches and closer cooperation between CBD and UNFCCC. And building on this, actually, CBD parties have been exploring some concrete ways to enhance policy coherence across the 3 Rio conventions. So we're seeing some concrete steps in this direction, and also seeing some new opportunities on this with respect to cooperation with the upcoming entry into force of the Agreement on Biodiversity Beyond National Jurisdiction, the BBNJ agreement, which can support both biodiversity and climate goals, for example, through its provisions on area-based management tools. When it comes to connecting to people's daily lives, well, the KMGBF targets 8 and 11, they directly link biodiversity action with climate mitigation and adaptation through nature-based solutions and ecosystem-based approaches, which of course includes blue carbon habitats. And so together with spatial planning, ecosystem restoration, and the well-known 30 by 30 target, there are some real opportunities to advance joint action on the ground. And all of these together, they can benefit livelihoods, food security, coastal resilience. Of course, this was also emphasized by Karina. This needs to follow the human rights-based approach, which is very well embedded in the framework itself, and ensure the full and effective participation of indigenous peoples and local communities. And when it comes to accelerating climate implementation, well, we all know we don't have a lot of time left. And also with respect to the KMGBF targets, we have 5 years left to achieve them. And now one thing also I wanted to emphasize is that with the CBD parties now revising their national biodiversity strategies, there is a key moment here to improve this, also align them better with the NDCs and NAPs and vice versa, and align monitoring and reporting systems using similar data where possible. And of course, there have been also increased calls for more coordination between the convention's respective national focal points, across different national ministries, which often deal separately with issues of the environment, climate, ocean, and fisheries. And next year's global review of progress and implementation of the KMGBF, which will be conducted at CBD COP17. This will be the first sort of opportunity and moment to assess progress and identify some key gaps which can guide the next phase of action, and will also importantly inform the ocean and climate space. So ultimately, as we have heard time and time again, the Paris Agreement and the KMGBF cannot be achieved in isolation. And so I think the importance of these interlinkages is becoming more and more evident, not only through how both conventions have been elevating this issue, but also through other global multilateral fora. But of course, many, many opportunities still remain for this coordinated action until 2030 and well beyond. Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you. Thank you very much, Marketa. Those are very important words. And, you know, your comment that the ocean lies at the center of the ocean and climate crisis, well, you know, that is the core of the ROCA report, right? That's what it's about. And that's what the ROCA initiative has always been about since it was first launched in 2016 by our dear friend, the late Dr. Biljana Sisson-Sain. Thank you very much. So now I will hand it over to Torsten for your comments.
Thank you very much. And it's a great pleasure to report back to you on the report. I was co-author of Chapter 8 on financing ocean and climate action. And one of the key aspects that we identified is that there is indeed a collective increase in financial commitments and innovative finance mechanisms for the blue economy from a whole range of actors, countries, multilateral development banks, and private sectors since COP28. And so we are seeing a promising shift from conceptualization to operationalization. And note that momentum at COP30 will be critical to fast track this process. So I'm particularly happy to report back to you from Belém, where this morning the Blue Package plan to accelerate ocean-based climate solutions has now been made public. And this is exactly what we're asking for, which is a unified approach to accelerate solutions. So to translate ocean breakthroughs, which are defined interventions to help sectors to transition into a joint integrated roadmap. Now, why is this so important? It is because, of course, we see a significant shortfall what is required in order to achieve long-term ocean health and a sustainable and regenerative blue economy. And this is particularly challenging for small island developing states and ocean-reliant communities under worsening climate change. So the urgency of this finance action cannot be underscored enough. The amounts that have been identified in terms of what is necessary in terms of investment are very significant. We're talking the order of $550 billion annually. And these targets all need to be scaled up towards 2030. So the financing aspect is key. And COP29 gave us clear commitments in terms of what needs to be mobilized annually. These commitments need to be translated into action. They themselves represent significant increases relative to previous commitments and significant increase in ambition in terms of how public funding and philanthropy funding can be used to accelerate private investment in ocean climate solutions. There are a whole range of such investable propositions, but we need to create the structures and pathways for that investment to scale, for accelerating through blended finance solutions, through investments in patient capital, through access to global capital markets for ocean and climate. So absolutely crucial that this work continues. And we've identified a whole range of pathways, actors, and participants to actually facilitate this emerging new ocean finance architecture. One aspect I do want to mention more specifically is around specific products for innovative sources of ocean financing. There is an emerging space around blue bonds, around using clear taxonomies so that we have clear principles and pathways to issue more larger scale finance, but we also need risk management tools that allow these types of investment to flow. And so parametric insurance approaches, for instance, are ways to actually have measurable approaches that allow for financings that go more to local communities, go more directly to nature, climate solutions. These will help to support livelihoods as well as safeguarding biodiversity and critically strengthen coastal resilience for coastal communities. So finance needs not only to scale and to replicate, but it also needs to be integrated in these broader efforts around sustainable ocean plans, 100% covering marine and coastal spaces. And this regulatory work around national systems can be supported through development partners so that we deliver inclusive, resilient, and climate-smart ocean economies. So the interaction between an ocean accounts way of thinking about the ocean economy linked with an ocean finance approach, that is, I think, where we are heading towards. The report gives us a good update of where this state is, but the urgency that science tells us for this type of action and intervention encourages us to work harder around these pathways. Thank you very much.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Torsten. Very good news to hear about the Blue Package Plan. I'll certainly look forward to reading that. And, you know, as you say, financing is so important because without that, without the right kind of financing and the amount, and as you say, we're talking about large amounts, the kind of responsible use of science-based solutions and the interconnectivity and integration of biodiversity that Karina was talking about, and the integration of biodiversity and oceans that Marketa was talking about, those can't be achieved unless you have the financing that actually allows the solutions to be implemented in a sustainable way. So that's good news, and thank you very much for that report. And now for the last, but by no means least, of our panelists, very pleased to now ask Whitney to make her comments. Thank you. Whitney, over to you.
Thank you, Peter. Yes, my name is Whitney Berry. I'm the Associate Director of Climate Policy at Ocean Conservancy. And firstly, I'd like to thank Miriam and the whole team at the Global Ocean Forum for convening us here today. I've been able to contribute to the report for the third iteration this year, so I'm very happy to be here. And I'm happy to provide a really brief overview of my contributions to this year's ROCA report, as well as discussing, you know, the tie-ins and importance of COP30 and some of the specific policy opportunities for the ocean happening on the ground in Belém. For the ROCA report, my primary focus was on the central role of nationally determined contributions and other national tools for ocean climate action, as well as sharing updates on the mobilization of the Friends of the Ocean Climate Group, which, as a reminder, is an informal group that brings together UNFCCC parties to discuss ocean climate action and assess the best ways to integrate those actions across UNFCCC process and across other international fora, like the CBD that we heard about from Marketa. And these updates are significant because, as I'm sure many of you are aware, this is, you know, the 10th anniversary of the Paris Agreement coming up at COP30, as well as the 5-year revision cycle of nationally determined contributions. And these NDCs are the primary mechanism for implementing the Paris Agreement. And as we can all remember from the outcomes of the first global stocktake released at COP28, the world is not on track to meet our global climate goals. And therefore, there's an urgent need to conserve, protect, and restore marine and coastal ecosystems, and of course, to strengthen ocean-based climate action as a crucial pathway to keeping us aligned in that 1.5 degree goal of the Paris Agreement and keeping it within reach. So in keeping with the 5-year revision cycle for NDCs, countries have submitted new and updated NDCs informed by that first GST ahead of COP30. And this is important to note because the international community is really entering a new phase focused on accountability and shifting from negotiation to delivery. And therefore, this year's COP is really being framed as a turning point for moving from commitments to concrete implementation. And this moment offers a vital opportunity to scale and embed these crucial ocean-based climate solutions more deeply into nationally determined contributions and the overall climate regime, helping to unlock climate finance, as we heard about from Torsten, capacity building, and the technical assistance that's truly needed for real implementation on the ground to achieve these key ocean solutions. And although we've seen a lot of progress on the inclusion of ocean-based climate solutions in NDCs over the past revision cycle, given the sheer potential of these mitigation and adaptation solutions, their integration into NDCs is still vastly underrepresented. And oftentimes we find that these national commitments remain too vague and lack adequate means of implementation to truly be actionable. And we know that ocean-based climate solutions have the potential to deliver up to 35% of required emissions reductions to stay within that 1.5 degree target. But this number relies heavily on ocean-based mitigation solutions, with the most potential emission reductions relying on the expansion of responsible marine renewable energy, phasing out offshore oil and gas, and decarbonizing maritime transport and aquatic food systems. In addition to emissions reductions, these solutions can simultaneously contribute to climate resilience, biodiversity conservation, and sustainable development. And this builds on Marketta's points with synergies across the CBD and other conventions. And therefore, when countries revise their national climate strategies, such as NDCs, it presents a really critical window of opportunity to better leverage these ocean solutions. And this focus on NDCs for ocean climate action included in the ROCA report aligns very clearly with the COP30 Presidency priority of accelerating climate implementation. And this leads me to one of the key opportunities at COP30, which I'm happy to talk about, which is the Blue NDC Challenge that was launched by Brazil and France at UNOC earlier this year. The Blue NDC Challenge is a global call for parties to the Paris Agreement to integrate ocean-based solutions into those updated NDCs. And it really hits home the fact that there are no pathways to achieve net zero by 2050 without significant contributions from the ocean solutions. And now is the time to stress their importance and request resources needed for real implementation. By joining, governments commit to accelerating ocean-based mitigation through advancing the integration of ocean-based actions within those NDCs and ensuring that commitments are translated into concrete policies, measures, and tangible results for nature and people. I'll just plug that there will be a side event and convenings at COP30 that will further discuss this important topic. And in addition to announcing new countries who have joined the Blue NDC, there will also be a synthesis report released on the state of ocean-based climate action in the latest round of submitted NDCs, showcasing how ocean-based solutions are being integrated into national strategies for mitigation, adaptation, and resilience. So in conclusion, nations must urgently accelerate and scale climate action to safeguard planetary health by putting these ocean measures, policies, and targets at the heart of their national climate plans. And it's our hope that COP30 will really help to highlight these crucial ocean opportunities, some of the gaps and challenges, and chart a path toward COP31 and beyond to ensure that ocean action delivers for people, nature, and the Paris Agreement. Thank you, Peter.
Great, thank you very much, Whitney, and that's a great way to sum up this panel of session because the NDCs really speak to action, right? And action is being taken, and the whole ROCA initiative has been about ensuring that oceans are central to that, and that's not just. Oceans are not just something that people who are interested in oceans talk about, that in fact oceans get spread throughout the entire climate change methodologies and techniques and implementation. So this is something that has to be integrated, not separated out and just dealt with as a side component. Oceans are central and critical. So thank you so much for your comments, and thank you to all the panelists for your presentations and also for your contributions to the ROCA report. I don't see any Q&A in that session, but if any of our participants does have a question, please feel free to write it in. But if not, we are very close, I think, Miriam, to moving on to the next panel, but maybe I'll just give 1 minute for any of the panelists who've just spoken, if you wanted to make any final comment that you hadn't heard, or that you really wanted to get in but just didn't have time. But let me just check again to see if there's anything in the... So I don't see any Q&As in the open session, and I don't see anything in the chat either. Okay, so in that case then, as we're now at 35, so I think we're at time to move on to the next panel. Well, actually, we do have time, still have time for questions. We're ahead of time, so let me just
got one question just came in.
Okay, yeah, let me see if we can. Sometimes it takes a little while for these for people to write the questions in, and I do see we do have a bit of time before the next panel is due to start. So I see my good friend Tony McDonald putting a question in. So so Tony, who's a member of the board of the Global Ocean Forum, writes, while great progress has been made on ocean climate solutions, also we need accountability to objectives of BBMJ and CBD. I don't know if anybody would like to, I think that's BBNJ, is it? Yes, BBNJ. Yes. So would any of the, so we need accountability around the objectives of the BBNJ and CBD. So would any of the panelists like to make any comments on that? It's not so much a question as a statement, but I think it's something that certainly generates a comment. If anybody would like to comment on Tony's point?
I'm
happy. Marketa,
go ahead. Go ahead.
Yes, Marketa, go ahead, and then Chris.
No, just very quickly. That of course this is it's been viewed like such a great multilateral success. The fact that the BNJ agreement has finally come through, and the fact that we've got the necessary 6th ratification, and that it's going to come into force in January. And now obviously everyone is scrambling, trying to put together the necessary, trying to operationalize the agreement. So we're just at the beginning of all of this, and all of the provisions, all of the negotiations and discussions that have been happening at the PrepComs this year, and that will happen in March next year. All of these are going to hopefully ensure that the accountability is embedded in the provisions of the agreement, and then agreed at the first COP as much as possible. And for the CBD, of course, this is also a key moment. We just had our subsidiary body meeting last month, and there is going to be another one next year ahead of COP, and those will be really important opportunities also to see how it can feed further to the BBNJ agreement as well.
Great. Torsten, was it you had a comment?
Yes, and following on from Marketa's point, as we operationalize BBNJ, integrating climate smart solutions in area-based management tools is an important part. And so bringing these processes more together is a real opportunity. And I, of course, focus on the finance mechanism for BBNJ, which again allows us, because it has multiple components, to bring some of this innovation and thinking and public and private partnerships also into the high seas area. So it's an exciting space, and it's really key that we operationalize it fully.
Great. Okay, thank you. So we have a second point that's been put into the Q&A. Again, it's not so much a question as a statement, but says we are implementing NBS and other methodologies to implement. However, the problem is the financing. And this is from Hussein Nibani from Morocco. And I think that's probably a point for you to comment on, Torsten, and maybe if you wanted to say a little bit more about the Blue Package Plan and what that might deliver in terms of financing. But obviously that's on the mind of a lot of people in terms of still the continued lack of financing to implement these things on the ground, solutions on the ground.
Yes. Nature-based solutions is a key part of how we address these ongoing challenges. And so there are costs involved, but there are also opportunities that come from these nature-based solutions to reduce, for instance, the impact of storm surges through the nature-based solutions. So when we talk about aspects like parametric insurance, these are actually ways to price the difference of having these solutions and not having solutions. And so we are turning something that is clearly a financing challenge also to an investable opportunity. So it's that holistic way of thinking that we need to deploy. And the ocean breakthroughs and the Blue Package thinking is very much to identify for each of these sectors, what does it take from a financing and engagement point of view to make this transition in a holistic way, so that the people who benefit from the nature-based solutions are fully part of the design and the planning, and so that we can come up with sustainable, regenerative blue economy structures along coasts as these changes happen. So it's a very important question that was raised here. And yes, I very much encourage everybody to take a look at the Blue Package. It's just out. There'll be sessions about it later this week and next week, and a really important discussion point. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And can I just ask you, Torsten, the Blue Package, is that a proposal for new financing, or does it involve actual decisions that are being made at the COP at this point, resulting in additional finance? Or is it it's a plan, so maybe it's the request?
It's an approach that it was developed by a whole group of private and NGO participation to try to put together a broader plan or package, but it sits now under the NASCA portal in the documentation of the UNFCCC, and really allows us to discuss all these components and aspects in a joint integrated way, which should then also facilitate the financing flows for these different components. So the finance really sits throughout the Blue Package, and then you have some cross-cutting pathways, which includes the regulatory aspect, the stakeholder engagement, etc. So sectors, cross-cutting, and finance as a supporting tool.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you very much. That's very exciting. Look forward to reading that. So I don't see any more questions. So I think now we are very much approaching the time for conclusion. So I'd like to thank all of our panelists, Karina, Marketa, Torsten, Whitney. Thank you so much for your contributions this morning, and also, as I say, your contributions to the ROCA report, and for highlighting, why this report is so important at this moment in time, given the situation that we're facing around the world, and the increasing sort of necessity of taking very clear action, both on mitigation and adaptation in the oceans. So thank you all very, very much indeed. So it's now my pleasure to hand over to Indu to moderate the second panel discussion, which is entitled Strategies for Regional Implementation of Identified ROCA Priorities. So over to you, Indu. Thanks, everybody.
Hi, Indu. You are on mute. If you could unmute, please.
Oops, I'm sorry. Thank you to Peter and the panelists before for very, very pertinent discussions. For my panel, we have a distinguished list of speakers, and we're really looking forward to hearing from them. And thank you also to everybody who's tuned in to make this session very productive. So before I hand over to my list of speakers, let me just mention a couple of things about our session now, which is to regionalize the recommendations of the ROCA. The ROCA report lays out a pathway, a roadmap to move forward on the ocean climate agenda. The messages are really powerful, they're critical, they're urgent, but now their true value lies in how they are translated into action at the regional level, because that's where the action is, and in implementation of these priorities. Now, why is the regional strategy so important? It's because the ecosystems, the coastal and marine ecosystems and coastlines are shared, and shared ecosystems require shared solutions. And then we heard about the blue package, which has like over 500 billion per year. Now we need to know how the funds flow, the financial flows will come to the regions, and how they can access this money, these big amounts of financing. So the countries within regions they don't have uniform capacity. They don't have uniform access to information or knowledge or technology. So working at the regional level cooperation is key, collaboration is key. So we are going to hear from our distinguished panelists on how we can transform the powerful messages from COP30 laid out very clearly, succinctly in the ROCA report, and how these regions can make use of, translate, encourage the national governments to incorporate them into their NDCs, and how they could probably set up hubs, regional hubs, to help the national governments in moving forward on the climate-ocean nexus. So let me mention that we have a panel of distinguished speakers. We have Dr. Ivelia Rivera Arriaga from the Universidad Autónoma de Campeche, Mexico, a good friend of mine. We have Amy Gonzalez from PIMC, presenting by video, I believe. We have Christopher Corbin, the UNEP Cartagena Convention Secretariat, Cartagena Convention Secretariat. And then we have Pablo Escribano from the International Organization for Migration. So let me invite first speaker, Dr. Ivelia. Welcome, Ivelia.
Thank you very much, Indu. Thank you, Miriam, and thank you, the Global Ocean Forum, for this opportunity. The subsection I participate was on the regional developments in Latin America and Caribbean, together with 18 authors, and we were from 12 countries. The priorities we found in this region, I summarized them that first, we all share similar issues and challenges. So the region is important to consider that we need to strengthen collaboration and governance. That means to foster greater cooperation and integration among society, academia, and the government across the region to ensure unified and effective action on climate change. Include blue carbon to NDCs. Mexico has already done that, but it's important that the other countries do that, and enhance mechanisms for blue economy implementation. Prioritize scientific evidence and knowledge to stress the importance of scientific research is a key issue to inform policymakers, to ensure accessible technologies and democratized scientific knowledge to effectively address climate challenges. To improve data and capacity is very important. Is a limitation, it's a key limitation by calling for improved data collection, enhancing technical capacity, especially in Central America and the Caribbean, and implementing data governance frameworks to strengthen resilience and policymaking. To promote all ocean decade goals, especially ocean literacy. This is a key factor because most of the people are not even living in the coastal zones, are not aware of the importance of the coastal and the marine zones, the oceans in their lives. Address institutional and financial gaps. And this is to overcome hindrances to climate agendas by addressing scientific gaps, securing political support, building institutional capacity, and improving financing and technical resources across Latin America and the Caribbean countries. One another is to ensure effective implementation of coastal marine zone management plans and policies. This is to focus on overcoming challenges that climate change is now and will impose, such as coastal populations vulnerability, mitigation and adaptation strategies for improving coastal resilience, insufficient funding and jurisdictional complexity, to ensure effective management and monitoring strategies are fully executed, but particularly within protected marine and coastal areas. There are a lot of coastal missing, and we need to have data for that. And the one last point that we have as an emerging issue is climate migration that we will include in the next regional report. Now we are working in studying how many people are in danger, how many people is migrating from coastal zones that have been eroded in Mexico, and of course, the economic, social, cultural, and political impacts that these migration have together with these climate impacts. I think the region is it requires more attention. We really need international help and international capacities to share with us, tropicalizing them. Thank you very much, and that will be our findings. Thank you very much, Indu.
Thank you, Evelia. You raised a number of very pertinent points here, ending with the serious issue of climate migration, where will the people go who are going to be affected by climate change, sea level rise, and so on? Which countries would accept them, and how those countries themselves will be affected because of overcrowding and competition for resources. That's a very serious issue, especially for the SIDS countries, and not even SIDS, even larger islands. I come from an island myself, Sri Lanka, and we have low-lying areas, particularly in the north and the northeast. And then we have Maldives, which is our neighbor, and then Maldives, many of those islands might go underwater, and they would probably come to Sri Lanka or to India, and then the strain of the resources. You mentioned also the importance of data, and that's really, really key, because many countries don't have the data, and the data will be important to even mobilize finance. You know, you have to show that you have done so much, and there's so many other things to do, but the main thing is data. So if they don't have the data, then it's going to be very difficult to mobilize funding, move forward to scale up solutions, and so on. You have many others mentioned prioritizing scientific research, access to knowledge, and so on. So thank you, Evelia. That was a very productive presentation. Our next speaker is Dr. Amy Gonzalez from PEMC. Katie, is that by video? Can you show it? Or
Yes.
Amy, are you there?
Amy has shared a video contribution, so I will load that
Okay.
now.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening from the East Asian Seas region. It is my pleasure to participate in the launch of the Report on Assessing Progress on Ocean and Climate Action 2024 to 2025. This report could not have come at a critical time given that natural and man-made disasters are almost a daily occurrence in most countries in East and Southeast Asia. But before I go to my presentation, I would like to introduce briefly PEMC, which stands for Partnerships in Environmental Management for the Seas of East Asia. Our mission is to foster healthy and resilient coasts, ocean, people, and economies alongside our country partners, non-country partners, university partners, and local government partners, plus our donor agencies. So the photo that I'm about on the screen now is a photo devastation of Cebu, one of the provinces which was just picking up the pieces from the magnitude 6.9 earthquake that tore down its roads, bridges, and villages on September 30, and has just begun its recovery efforts when in early November it faced back-to-back typhoons, which killed 250 people, not only in Cebu, but also across Southeast Asia. Scientists say rising temperatures are to blame and warn that such extreme events can only become more frequent as global temperatures rise. So the next picture shows the current trends that are faced in the region up to 2070, which include record high temperatures, sea level rise, and worsening acidification. Now, we also note that in spite of the obstacles, global momentum is increasing. This is evident in the recently concluded UN Third Ocean Conference in Nice, France. For the region, a key outcome from the conference was the first ever collaboration of 9 key organizations in the region, which agreed on a framework for a regional collaboration on marine protected areas to accelerate its contribution to the 30 by 30 targets. Another example where the region is coming together through the partnership is the development of the Blue Carbon Ecosystems Services Management Mechanism. The mechanism serves as a regional non-binding framework to support the quantification, certification, and sustainable use of ecosystem services beyond carbon. The mechanism is structured around 4 components: reporting, certification, recording, and market creation or credit trading. It is a stepwise, inclusive, and adaptive approach to implementation. The key principles of the mechanism include integrated and adaptive management, recognition of national circumstances, collaborative partnerships, gender equality and social inclusion, and the application of the precautionary principle in the face of scientific uncertainty. This aligns with our joint regional strategy as well as the broader international frameworks. Now, one of the early deliverables from this mechanism is the Harmonized Regional Blue Carbon Accounting Protocol. The protocol is based on a comparative review of existing methods from the countries such as China, Indonesia, Japan, Philippines, RO Korea, and Thailand against the globally recognized standard VERA. It aims to harmonize approaches across carbon pools, ecosystems such as mangrove, seagrass, and tidal flats, and methods for stock and sequestration assessment in the region. Now, these collaborative initiatives from the region can contribute to the achievement of our global targets, particularly on strengthening national adaptation commitments of countries. Thank you.
Well, thank you for that, Amy. She's not here to thank personally, but that was an excellent presentation, particularly highlighting PIMSI's role. And PIMSI is a very good, provides a very good opportunity to help the countries in East Asia to scale up solutions, provide capacity, share information, share knowledge to help the countries move forward on the ocean climate agenda. She talked about regional blue carbon protocols, which is a really important activity, really important initiative to harmonize carbon pools, sequestration initiatives, how the more advanced countries could help the less advanced countries in carrying out these sequestration initiatives. Carbon sequestration is not that understood in some of the less developed countries. And so the more developed countries within a certain region should be able to, can help the others in moving forward. We all require a collective approach. That is the message from COP30, also collective action. So PIMSI really is a very good regional organization to help with this agenda. So without much further ado, let me invite our next speaker. That is Christopher Corbin, UNEP Cartagena Convention Secretariat. Welcome, Christopher.
Make sure I'm on mute. Yes, thank you so much. And let me join with my previous colleagues in again thanking the Global Ocean Forum for this opportunity to share a bit of our perspectives on the report, but also in terms of work at the regional level. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, friends, colleagues. The Caribbean Sea is not just changing, it is sounding an alarm. Bleached corals, hotter waters, and storms like Hurricane Melissa, which devastated parts of Jamaica where we are based, are not just future forecasts, they are our present reality. This crisis threatens the very core of our livelihoods, our tourism, our food security, and particularly for vulnerable small island developing states. But we are not defenseless. We have a regional shield, the Cartagena Convention and the protocol. I represent their secretariat. And my message today is simple. It is a shield we are already strengthening, and it's delivering results for protecting the ocean and responding to the negative impacts of climate change. In terms of our contribution to the report, we focus very much on how are we already strengthening this shield. At our recent 18th Conference of Parties for the Cartagena Convention, our 26 contracting government parties committed to improving monitoring and assessment to produce State of Caribbean Sea reports that better inform policy and decision-making, as well as catalyzing greater action. We have seen renewed political will, for example, with new accessions of our technical protocols on marine biodiversity and marine pollution by the government of St. Kitts and Nevis. Through projects on wastewater, on plastics, and on marine protected areas, including the adoption of regional strategies and action plans, such as a new regional sargassum action plan, we are actively reducing pollution and turning crises into opportunities. This isn't just talk, ladies and gentlemen, this is actionable governance at a regional level that delivers cleaner water and healthier coasts for our people. But the reality is, for us to see the measure of our success, it's not just in the fact that we have a regional agreement or that we have COP decisions, but on the ground impacts that directly benefit people. Our marine biodiversity protocol, for example, puts nature and people at the center of the solution with a focus on the sustainable use of those resources. Every dollar we invest in mangrove restoration is a natural seawall. Every dollar we invest in protecting turtles provides a safeguard for an interconnected coastal and marine ecosystem. To scale this up, we are working with several partners, including development banks, to develop innovative financing mechanisms while enhancing our own sustainable financing through the development of our first resource mobilization strategy. Friends, the finance must move from conference rooms and commitments to actual investment and to our coastlines, reaching the frontiers of climate change and response. And I'll be the first to say, as a region that represents a number of developing countries, we do need more sustainable financing. So to close, I want to highlight that the ocean, and I dare say the Caribbean Sea, cannot absorb our inaction. The Cartagena Convention and other existing regional frameworks already provide a network of partnerships and the proof that coordinated, committed regional action works. My own call to action on behalf of the wider Caribbean region and during this important report launch today is to governments. We need to integrate ocean and interrelated climate change priorities. That has already been mentioned by some of the previous speakers, and we need to integrate them into national development plans, accounts, and budgets. To our partners, I'm hoping that there are some on the line, we need to fund community and local-based projects that are more integrated with measurable outcomes that address not just the symptoms of the problem, but the root causes. And I would say the call for all of us is let's make the sustainable blue economy a reality by working more closely together and addressing issues of biodiversity loss, climate change in a more integrated and holistic manner. As the Caribbean Sea connects us in the wider Caribbean region, the ocean connects us all. And now it's calling on us urgently to protect it together. Thank you again very much, and looking forward to any questions that might be posed.
Thank you, Christopher. That's a very important call to action that you mentioned, which we have also in the ROCA report. And really pleased to hear about your Cartagena Convention Secretariat's activities, which are helping the countries in the Caribbean region. You mentioned that the renewed political will, and that's really, really important. Without political will, we won't get anywhere. So the renewed political will to implement regional strategies and action plans is so critical. And then therein lies the ability to mobilize financing, sustainable financing, which the countries need to be active on in order to be able to implement investing investment, getting the financing, getting the action to scale up what is being done. And you highlighted the disaster of the, what was it? It's Melissa, right? Which we all saw the pictures, you know, the devastation in Jamaica. It was so terrible. And we were talking earlier, speakers, about climate migration. So this kind of disaster means, you know, people will have to migrate to higher land, and then the competition for resources we've talked about. So yes, your region, the 26 governments in the Cartagena Convention Secretariat, I think you're doing great work, and your presentation is very, very pertinent. So thank you, Christopher. So our final speaker on this panel is Pablo Escribano from the International Organization for Migration. So we'll probably hear more about the climate migration. So welcome, Pablo. Pablo?
Hello. Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hello,
Thank you.
Dr. Inda. Thank you very much for your introduction, and greetings to everyone from Belém. No, I would like to thank you obviously first for the opportunity to speak at this webinar, and for our contribution to, or enabling our contribution to the ROCA report along with my colleague Chris Richter. We had the pleasure to work on a section on population displacement, right? And it is funny because a couple of panelists have mentioned these issues earlier, right? Which I guess speaks to the idea that we all have, you know, that the impacts of climate change and environmental migration are necessarily intertwined with issues of human mobility, right? Of migration, of displacement, of planned relocation of communities. In our paragraph, what we try to explore is indeed how both the slow onset and the sudden onset impacts associated with climate change are increasingly driving human mobility patterns. We're seeing obviously the disaster displacement of populations in coastal areas, with very recent examples, obviously Melissa being one of them, which obviously we're still trying to really grasp the impact. But last year, coastal areas of Brazil, of the Caribbean, of the United States, in Asia, have been affected by sudden onset disaster displacement, which obviously calls into the question also the humanitarian response that's required to make sure that enough humanitarian assistance is provided to these populations. But also, and one of the previous speakers was mentioning it, I think, and she was making the reference to the station of Mexico, where there was a very visible case of planned relocation last year, but also in places like Panama and others. The process of planned relocation of communities away from the shoreline, in which, you know, their habitats and their ecosystems and their communities are becoming increasingly impacted by sea level rise, coastal erosion, right? So we're seeing increasingly policy processes that, in a nutshell and very simplistic way of describing it, take communities and put them somewhere else, right? And in that sort of few words and short sentences, you can imagine the amount of challenges this implies, right? Because what has become clear over time, and I think we're all understanding this now, is that planned relocation does not mean just building houses, right? It's rebuilding community life, it's preserving culture, it's preserving means of lives, it's preserving livelihoods, it's enabling participation of affected communities. And so we have all these stories of planned relocation of communities that are that have so many challenges and lessons learned in the process, right? Many of them did not meaningfully engage affected communities. Many of them did not account for the livelihoods in destination areas. We have communities of fisherfolk who have been moved inland, in which they don't have access to the traditional livelihoods. So we have all these challenges that will require increased attention, unfortunately, from policymakers, decision makers, the academia. and also engagement in terms of the, now that we're at COP30, but of the adaptation and the loss and damage perspectives, right? What does it mean in terms of loss and damage when you have to move a community away from the shoreline because of the impacts of climate change? But then you can also think, and we sort of made a couple of references in our article to the other way around, right? The idea that human mobility, migration itself is creating increasing scenarios of vulnerability, because we're still seeing in many areas that populations are still settling in dangerous areas and hazard-prone areas in the coastline, right? So there's some studies, for instance, that are certain that for every house that the government buys back of people, 10 more get built in a hazard-prone areas, right? So we're still seeing basically that human mobility, unmanaged mobility and unmanaged land management in coastal areas is actually contributing to risk scenarios, right? Because people are still building and settling in areas that are prone to sea level rise, to coastal erosion, to all different, to coastal flooding, so to different impacts, right? So obviously this is where the questions surrounding land planning, coastal management come into play, and they need to really ensure that there is a strongly built coastal management and sustainable development process to address these issues. So maybe I will leave it there, but happy to take any question, and again, grateful for the opportunity, and also grateful for the interest that the different speakers have initiated on climate mobility issues, and for the previous speakers who are interested in addressing these issues, happy to stay in touch and facilitate the process as much as possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pablo. That was very interesting. You touched upon all the key points of climate migration. And it was interesting that you talked about climate migration, the displacement of populations actually increases vulnerability, because the displaced persons go and settle in areas that are themselves prone to sea level rise or erosion, and their activities themselves will make them even more vulnerable. And also the people that were originally there also become more vulnerable because of the crowding and because of the pressure, because of the competition for resources. So you also mentioned that about the loss and damage, how do we distribute? What is the government's role? What is the local government's role in allocating the funds from the loss and damage funds? Sometimes also in countries there could be political pressures, and the funding may not be allocated equitably. So that also is a problem that maybe the NGO community could keep an eye, be a watchdog in this kind of situation. And you also mentioned that the providing housing is not sufficient, because displaced persons need livelihoods. So now, if they were fishermen and then they are relocated into the hilly areas or something, what are they going to do? They don't have the skills or capacity or resources to adopt other livelihoods. So this is really, really important, and urgent action needs to be taken at every level, the support that's needed for climate migration. So thank you, Pablo. So with that, I think we have had all our panelists speak. And now if there are questions, you can post on the Q&A box or the chat feature. Katie, do you see? Because I have a problem with the Q&A box.
Yes, we've had a few questions, so I will post them in the chat so you're able to see.
Yeah.
We've had two for Mr. Escribano.
There it is. Is there a central place to read about the impacts of relocation? That's for Pablo.
Yes, thank you very much. That's a great question. So there have been studies, right, about relocation. we've done, or we contributed to a mapping of relocation cases, because one of the challenges is that, you know, we really, in many countries, do not have actually an updated database of, you know, how many people have relocated and what are the cases, right? So we did a literature review along with the platform on disaster displacement to map out relocation scenarios in the literature. And then if you're interested into case studies, there's a climate migration database. I can put the link in the chat. Now, obviously, it includes different forms of mobility, not only relocation, right? But you can find there. And I would also say that, obviously, planned relocation is not only in coastal areas, right? Climate relocation would also happen in mountain areas, landslides, so a wide range of hazards. But yes, I will put both references to the mapping of studies and the climate migration database, so that you can access further information.
Thank you, Pablo. I think that will be very useful if you can put the link into the chat feature. What was the next question, Katie? Sorry, disappeared from my screen.
No problem. This next question is on a similar vein, asking if the ROCA report has begun to quantify the social and economic impacts of climate migration and how these can be integrated into governance and finance frameworks.
Well, we haven't done a quantification. I mean, Peter, you can correct me if I'm wrong. But that's a point that we could really pick up into our next discussions, and perhaps the next ROCA report can definitely pick up from there into quantifying some of this. And the data may not also be available to do an exercise like that right now. We can start from what Pablo mentioned and the link that he has made. Peter, can you chip in here?
Yeah, no, I think your answer is fine. I think in the interest of time, your answer is good on that end.
Okay, but thanks for that question, because the climate migration is happening already, and we do need the data to make some quantification exercises. Anything else, Katie?
Yes, I can read the questions as they're coming in, Indu, if that would be helpful.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
This question is from GMU students to our panelists, is asking, to what level does pollutant intrusion in our ocean affect extremophilic life at the bottom of the ocean?
Great question. Anybody on the panel? Would you like to pick up?
Well, maybe I can touch upon the potential for that happening from a marine pollution standpoint. And certainly there are numbers of pollutants that are discharged both from land and marine-based sources that potentially would be absorbed onto sediment. Potentially that could certainly end up in the deep ocean, with the potential for it to be deabsorbed or for it to be re-released back into the environment, therefore with the potential of affecting deep sea species, ecosystems, etc. Whether or not there have been any major studies on that, I must admit my life as a scientist is somewhere in the past, so I would defer to others who might know if that's an active area of research, but certainly I think the risk and the potential is there.
Yes, I think that is quite correct, because when we mention that the ocean is dying, you know, with all this pollution, the plastic pollution, the nutrient pollution and so on, and then they settle on the coral reefs, and then the coral reefs will also die because they cannot breathe, the coral. So this is a really, really important issue, and it's a difficult one, especially for countries that don't have that kind of resources to come up with, you know, maybe nature-based solutions. So how can you remove the plastics, you know, like, and I was in Tamil Nadu not very long ago, and there was also this oil pollution. There's this huge oil slick on a river and into the ocean there, which they have taken like 10 years and it's still there. So it's a very, very serious issue, the pollution. Anything else, Katie?
Yes, we have several questions coming in now. This next one from Tony McDonald, noting that adaptation, including loss and damage, have gotten increasing attention at COP and other climate discussions over recent years, which is understandable given the direct impact and concerns at local and regional scale. Is there concern that financing for these adaptation actions will crowd out financing and prioritization of climate mitigation and other ocean climate solutions?
Great question, Tony. That's really an important issue. How can the financing for adaptation, be separated from the financing for mitigation and climate action, ocean protection, marine resource protection, and so on? Is anybody able to respond to Tony on this important issue? It's on the loss and damage.
Maybe I can start, but I mean, I'm certainly there. I'm certain there is concern in terms of, the risk of, but I'm not sure that the risk is particularly on raising adaptation equals less funds for mitigation. I think the concern is on climate funding all across, right? I mean, the idea is that, or the call from developing countries is to double adaptation finance. There's calls at COP to triple adaptation finance. But I think that the understanding is that this should be supplementary funds to mitigation, right? So I mean, I don't think, I think we're thinking into, I think countries are thinking into really developing adaptation finance, not as a sort of, depleting mitigation finance, but really have an increase in adaptation finance by itself, right? Which should be consistent with the NCQJ and the Baku to Belém roadmap. A bit similar than the loss and damage scenario, right? In which, as you all know, we're still far away from what developing countries are asking for. The first phase of the Barbados Fund will be 250 million. With, I think there's commitments to around 800 million with the latest pledge from Spain. I think everyone considers this should be additional funding, right? So supplementary funding, not taken from one spot and moved to the other. So there's concern, I think, on overall climate finance not being up to scale. I'm not sure there's that much concern about, moving pots, basically.
Thank you, Pablo. Do we have time, Katie, for further questions?
We have time for one question, and then I'd encourage all of our panelists to try to share written responses in the Q&A to some of the questions we didn't have time to answer in the session, and also would invite all of our attendees to visit the Virtual Ocean Pavilion platform, where you can continue to use the chat through the platform and engage with other attendees and speakers through the pavilion. So this final question that we will answer today is, considering the cultural significance of fishing and coastal livelihoods, has ROCA explored how communities respond to alternative livelihood programs?
Well, maybe if I could reply to that, the ROCA report is very much a global initiative. It provides the roadmap for action. And it is now, all of us need to help with translating those messages, those recommendations into regional, national, and local action. So that would be a second initiative or intervention. Again, I would ask Peter to chip in here to explain further.
Actually, Evelia has raised her hand.
I'm sorry. Evelia, please.
Thank you. We have been carrying on a project precisely about that. And the first thing to know with the communities are the possibilities for them, the willingness to change, shift actions, activities, and the response were yes, especially because fishers or fishermen here are not medium water fishers. They are coastal, riverine fisheries, artisanal fisheries. And because of the raising of temperature, octopus maya, especially, which is very valuable here, and other species are gone. They are moving and migrating towards cooler waters, and they cannot afford to pay diesel or gasoline to go that far away. Normally, they used to go around 3 to 5 nautical miles away, but now, and spend 3 to 4 days fishing, but now they have to go farther, much farther, and they spend 10 to 15 days away to make the capture profitable enough to pay back ice, water, food, fuel, and so on and so forth. So for them are not rentable anymore. And what they answered was, yes, we are willing to do whatever it requires, but we need money to feed ourselves daily, because many times they don't have money to feed themselves or their families. So yes, at least here in the southern part of Mexico.
Thank you, Ibelia. That gives us a picture of what is happening in coastal areas where fishers are really facing tremendous pressure, especially when the near shore is overfished. And what do? They don't have the capacity or the big boats to go further offshore and be at sea for like 1 to 3 months. So it is a very big issue. Well, I wanted to say that in Mexico, you have done a lot of things that you could share with your member countries, the other neighboring countries. That would be, I think, very, very important to do. So I think we are at the end of the session. And as Katie mentioned, panelists could please respond in the chat feature to some of the questions that are being raised. You may have inputs, additional inputs that you may share. So a big thank you to the panelists. I mean, this was a very, very productive, very important session. Many thanks. And I think it is over to you, Peter, for wrapping up.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much, Indu. I'd like to thank all of the presenters today. Thank you so much for your contributions, and to all of you who participated on this virtual COP30 event through the Virtual Oceans Pavilion. And thank you for being part of this formal launch of the 2024-25 ROCA report. As with previous ROCA reports, the focus is on assessing progress towards oceans and climate action. And building on the previous ROCA reports, this new report includes a tremendous amount of progress. Progress made from global level to national, to regional, to local, and to community, and even to individual levels, where tremendous progress is being made in addressing issues facing oceans and climate change, and also getting oceans more integrated and involved in the formal high-level negotiations that occur through the UNFCCC. But this progress that we identify is always balanced against the lack of enough progress being made in reducing greenhouse gas emissions, and what we see is a steady march towards a 1.5 degree centigrade world. And particularly now, having had 2024 being the first year that has actually exceeded the 1.5 degree centigrade level in terms of average global mean surface temperatures. So one of the key messages of this particular report, this 2024-25 report, is the alarm bells being sounded about the critical ocean systems that are moving steadily towards their possible tipping points and the potential catastrophic impacts of those on the health of our oceans and indeed the health of our planet at large. And the implications, of course, for not just millions of people, but for billions of people. And I think that's something that has been reflected today in our presentations, that that the impacts on the ground are absolutely disastrous from the current situation that we face, and we are moving towards potentially a situation where they could be catastrophic, not just on a regional level, but on a global level. And I think that's something that we have to start looking at very, very seriously. And I want to sort of draw your attention to the final word in the ROCA acronym. The final word is action. Over the last 9 years, the ROCA reports have been a call to action. And never before has this been more urgent than it is today. And so I am now pleased to ask Aygun Kali of Atılım University in Turkey to bring us a call to action. Over to you, Aygun.
Thank you. Could you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you to the Global Ocean Forum and to all the expert panelists for laying out the critical findings of the 2024 and 2025 ROCA report. What we have heard today is not just a summary of data. It's an alarm bell for humanity and all ecosystems, especially marine and ocean ecosystems. The report confirms our most urgent fears. We have crossed the 1.5 degree limit, and our ocean is paying the price. We are seeing a crisis that is moving faster and faster. Record ocean heat for the 18th year in a row. The largest global coral bleaching event in history, destroying ecosystems before our very eyes. And record sea level rise, combined with extreme weather, forcing the highest number of people from their homes ever recorded. The science is clear. The path we are on in disasters. But as the report also states, we cannot be stopped by fear. The way forward is clear, and it demands collective, urgent action. Today, as we look ahead to COP30, my call to action has 3 parts. First, no more delays. We must move faster to cut emissions. This is the root cause. We must invest in proven nature-based ocean solutions. We must avoid unproven technologies that could risk more harm. We must put the ocean's health first in all climate action. Second, we must blue the NDCs. The report is clear. The ocean and marine issues are still left out of too many national climate plans. We call on all countries to fully include ambitious ocean solutions in their new nationally determined contributions. This is not optional, it's essential. Third, we must get the money and use the law. We cannot ask developing nations and small island developing states to carry this weight alone. We must meet the new climate finance goals. And we must quickly put the new BBNJ agreement into action. Finally, this action cannot come only from the top. It must be inclusive. It must empower youth, civil society, and the groups who have often been left behind. As we prepare for Belém, we must join a collective, cooperative effort. Let us leave this room today not with fear, but with a sense of shared responsibility. Let's build a future shaped by working together, not disaster. The time for small steps is over. The time for big, transformative change is now. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Igon. That perfectly sums up the call to action from the from this 2024-25 ROCA report. So thank you all very much. I'd like to obviously encourage all of you to read the report. The report will be posted on the ROCA website, and links to it will, I'm sure, be placed on the Global Ocean Forum website and also through the Virtual Ocean Pavilion, so that you will be able to access the report and read it. I urge you to do that. There's a tremendous amount in it, and there's a lot of food for thought, but also there is this undeniable call for action at all levels. So with that, I would like to close this session, thanking once again all of our panelists, all of the 68 authors of the ROCA report, and the 44 organizations that have supported its production. And we look forward to hopefully seeing greater action and real solutions coming out of COP30, so that the next ROCA report can actually report not just on progress at various levels in mitigation and action and tremendous work being done, but can actually start reporting on progress on addressing the problem of global warming that is so devastating our oceans and is so catastrophic potentially for our planet. So thank you all very much, and enjoy the rest of your day, depending on what time it is for you. And we'll see you all again soon. Thank you.